Book 6, Canto 1, The Legend of Calidore. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Morgan Scorpion. The Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser. Book 6, The Legend of Calidore. Canto 1. Calidore saves from Malefort, a damsel used viled, doth vanquish Crudor, and doth make Brianna wex more mild. Of court, it seems, men courtesy do call, for that it there most useth to abound, and well beseemeth that in Princes hall that virtue should be plentifully found, which of all goodly manners is the ground, and root of civil conversation. Right so in Faerie court did it redound, where courteous knights and ladies most did won of all on earth, and make a matchless paragon. But mongst them all was none more courteous knight than Calidore, beloved over all, in whom it seems that gentleness of sprite and manners mild were planted natural, to which he adding comely guise withal, and gracious speech, did steal men's hearts away. Nathless thereto he was full stout and tall, and well approved in batteilous affray, that him did much renowme, and far his fame display. Nor was there knight, nor was there lady found in Faerie court, but him did dear embrace, for his fair usage and conditions sound, the which in all men's liking gained place, and with the greatest purchased greatest grace, which he could wisely use, and well apply, to please the blest, and the evil to embase, for he loathed leasing, and base flattery, and loved simple truth, and stedfast honesty. And now he was in travell on his way, upon an hard adventure sore bestad, when as by chance he met upon a day with Artegall, returning yet half sad from his late conquest, which he gotten had, who when as each of other had a sight, they knew themselves, and both their persons rad. When Calidore thus first: Haile, noblest knight, of all this day on ground, that breathen living sprite. Now tell, if please you, of the good success, which ye have had in your late enterprize. To whom Sir Artegall gan to express his whole exploit, and valorous emprise, in order as it did to him arise. Now happy man, sayd then Sir Calidore, which have so goodly, as ye can devise, achieved so hard a quest as few before, that shall you most renowmed make for evermore. But where ye ended have, now I begin to tread an endless trace, withouten guide, or good direction, how to enter in, or how to issue forth in ways untried, in perils strange, in labours long and wide, in which although good fortune me befall, yet shall it not by none be testified. What is that quest, quoth then Sir Artegall, that you into such perils presently doth call? The blatant beast, quoth he, I do pursue, and through the world incessantly do chase, till I him overtake, or else subdue. Yet know I not or how or in what place to find him out, yet still I forward trace. What is that blatant beast? Then he replied. It is a monster bred of hellish race, then answered he, which often hath annoyed good knights and ladies true, and many else destroyed. Of Curibus whilome he was begot, and fell Camailigua in her darksome den, through foul commixture of his filthy blot, where he was fostered long in Stygian fen, till he to perfect ripeness grew, and then into this wicked world he forth was sent, to be the plague and scourge of wretched men, whom with vile tongue and venomous intent he sore doth wound, and bite, and cruelly torment. Then since the salvage island I did leave, said Artegall, I such a beast did see, the which did seem 1,000 tongues to have, that all in spite and malice did agree, with which he bayed and loudly barked at me, as if at first he at once would me devour. But I that knew myself from peril free, did not regard his malice nor his power, but he the more wicked poison forth did pour. That surely is that beast, said Calidore, which I pursue, of which I am right glad to hear these tidings, which of none afore through all my weary travell I have had. Yet now some hope your words unto me add. Now God you speed, quoth then Sir Artegall, and keep your body from the danger drad, for ye have much ado to deal withal. So both took goodly leave, and parted several. Sir Calidore thence travelled not long, when as by chance a comely squire he found, that through some mighty enemies wrong, both hand and foot unto a tree was bound. Who seeing him from far, with piteous sound of his shrill cries him called to his side, to whom approaching, in that painfull stound, when he him saw, for no demands he stayd, but first him loosed, and afterwards thus to him sayd: Unhappy Squire, what hard mishap thee brought into this bay of peril and disgrace? What cruel hand thy wretched thraldom brought, and thee captured in this shamefull place? To whom he answered thus: My hapless case is not occasioned through my misdesert, but through misfortune, which did me abafe unto this shame, and my young hope subvert, ere that I in her guilefull traines was well expert. Not far from hence, upon yond rocky hill, hard by a strait there stands a caftle strong, which doth observe a custome lewd and ill, and it hath long maintained with mighty wrong, for may no knight nor lady pass along that way, and yet they needs must pass that way, by reason of the strait, and rocks among, but they that lady's locks do shave away, and that knight's beard for toll, which they for passage pay. A shamefull use, as ever I did hear, said Calidore, and to be overthrown. But by what means did they at first it rear, and for what cause? Tell, if thou have it known. Sayd then that squire: The lady which doth own this castle is by name Briana hight, than which a prouder lady liveth none. She long time hath dear loved a doughty knight, and sought to win his love by all the means she might. His name is Crudor, who through high disdaine and proud despite of his self-pleasing mind, refused hath to yield her love again, until a mantle she for him do find, with beards of knights and locks of ladies lined, which to provide she hath this castle dight, and therein hath a Seneschal assigned, called Malefort, a man of mickle might, who executes her wicked will with worfe despite. He this same day, as I that way did come with a faire damzell, my beloved deare, in execution of her lawless doome, did set upon us flying both for feare, for little boots against him hand to reare. Me first he tooke, unable to withstand, and whiles he her purfued every where, till his return unto this tree he bond. Ne wot I surely, whether her he yet have found. Thus whiles they spake, they heard a ruefull shriek of one loud crying, which they straightway guessed, that it was she, the which for help did seeke. Though looking up unto the cry to lest, they saw that carle from far, with hand unblest, hailing that maiden by the yellow haire, that all her garments from her snowy breast, and from her head her locks he nigh did teare, nor would he spare for pity, nor refraine for feare. Which haynous sight when Calidore beheld, eftsoons he loosed that squire, and so him left, with heart's dismay and inward dolour queld, for to pursue that villaine, which had reft that piteous spoil by so injurious theft. Whom overtaking, loud to him he cried: Leave fater quickly that misgotten weft to him, that hath it better justified, and turn thee soon to him, of whom thou art defied. Who hearkening to that voice himself uprear'd, and seeing him so fiercely towards make, against him stoutly ran, as nought afear'd, but rather more enraged for those words sake, and with stern countenance thus unto him spake: Art thou the caitiff that defiest me, and for this maid, whose party thou dost take, wilt give thy beard, though it but little be, yet shall it not her locks for ransome fro me free. With that he fiercely at him flew, and laid on hideous strokes with most importune might, that oft he made him stagger as unstayd, and oft recoyle to shun his sharp despite. But Calidore, that was well skilled in fight, him long forbore, and still his spirit spared, lying in wait, how him he dammaged might. But when he felt him shrink, and come toward, he greater grew, and gan to drive at him more hard. Like as a water streame, whose swelling source shall drive a mill, within strong bankes is pent, and long restrained of his ready course, so soon as passage is unto him lent, breaks forth, and makes his way more violent. Such was the fury of Sir Calidore, when once he felt his foeman to relent, he fiercely him pursued, and pressed sore, who as he still decayed, so he increased more. The heavy burden of whose dreadful might, when as the carle no longer could sustain, his heart gan faint, and straight he took his flight toward the castle, where if need constrain, his hope of refuge used to remain, whom Calidore, perceiving fast to fly, he him pursued, and chaced through the plain, that he for dread of death gan loud to cry unto the ward, to open to him hastily. They from the wall seeing him so aghast, the gate soon opened to receive him in. But Calidore did follow him so fast, that even in the porch he did him win, and cleft his head asunder to his chin. The carcass tumbling down within the door, did choke the entrance with a lump of sin, that it could not be shut, whilst Calidore did enter in, and slew the porter on the floor. With that the rest, the which the castle kept, about him flocked, and hard at him did lay, but he them all from him full lightly swept, as doth a steer, in heat of summers day, with his long tail the brizes brush away. Thence passing forth into the hall he came, whereof the Lady self in sad display he was ymet, who with uncomely shame gan him salute, and foul upbraid with faulty blame. False traitor knight, said fhe, no knight at all, but scorn of arms, that hast with guilty hand murdred my men, and slain my Seneschal. Now comest thou to rob my house unmanned, and spoil myself, that cannot thee withstand? Yet doubt thou not, but that some better knight than thou, that shall thy treason understand, will it avenge, and pay thee with thy right. And if none do, yet shame shall thee with shame requite. Much was the knight abashed at that word, yet answered thus: Not unto me the shame, but to the shamefull doer it afford. Blood is no blemish, for it is no blame to punish those that do deserve the same. But they that break bands of civility, and wicked customs make, those do defame both noble arms and gentle courtesy. No greater shame to man than inhumanity. Then do yourself, for dread of shame, forego this evil manner, which ye here maintaine, and do instead thereof mild courtesy shew to all that pass. That shall you glory gain more than his love, which thus ye seek t' obtaine. Wherewithal full of wrath fhe thus replide: Vile recreant, know that I do much disdaine thy courteous lore, that dost my love deride. Who scorns thy idle scoff, and bids thee be defide? To take defiance at a lady's word, quoth he, I hold it no indignity. But were he here, that would it with his sword abet, perhaps he mote it dearer buy. Cowherd, quoth fhe, were not that thou wouldst fly, ere he do come, he should be soon in place. If I do so, said he, then liberty I leave to you, for I me to disgrace with all those shames, that erst ye spake me to deface. With that a dwarfe fhe called to her in haste, and taking from her hand a ring of gold, a privy token, which between them past, bad him to fly with all the speed he could to Crudor, and desire him that he would vouchsafe to rescue her against a knight, who those strong power had now herself in hold, having late slain her Seneschal in fight, and all her people murdred with outrageous might. The dwarfe his way did haft, and went all night, but Calidore did with her there abide. The coming of that so much threatened knight, where that discourteous dame with scornfull pride, and foul entreaty him indignified, that iron heart it hardly could sustain. Yet he, that could his wrath full wisely guide, did well endure her womanifh disdaine, and did himself from frail impatience refraine. The morrow next, before the lamp of light above the earth upreared his flaming head, the dwarfe, who bore that message to her knight, brought answer back, that ere he tasted bread, he would her succour, and, alive or dead, her foe deliver up into her hand. Therefore he willed her do away all dread, and that of him fhe mote assured stand, and sent to her his bassonet, as a faithfull band. Thereof full blithe the Lady straight became, and gan to augment her bitterness much more, yet no whit more appalled for the same, nor aught dismayed was Sir Calidore, but rather did more cheerefull seeme therefore. And having soon his armes about him dight, did issue forth to meet his foe afore, where long he stayed not, when as a knight he spyde came pricking on with all his powre and might. Well weend he ftreight, that he fhould be the fame, which tooke in hand her quarrel to maintaine, nor stayed to aske if it were he by name, but coucht his fpeare, and ran at him amaine. They bene ymett in middeft of the plaine with so fell fury and dispiteous force, that neither could the others ftroke fuftaine, but rudely rolled to ground both man and horfe, neither of other taking pity nor remorfe. But Calidore uprofe againe full light, whilft yet his foe lay faft in fencelefle found, yet would he not him hurt, although he might, for fhame he weend a fleeping wight to wound. But when Briana faw that dreary ftound, that where fhe stood upon the caftle wall, She deemed him fure to have been dead on ground, And made fuch piteous mourning therewithal, That from the battlements fhe ready feemed to fall. Natheleffe at length himfelfe he did upreare, In luftlefle wize, as if againft his will, Ere he had flept his fill, he wakened were, And gan to ftretch his limbs, which feeling ill Of his late fall, a while he rested ftill. But when he faw his foe before in vew, He fhooke off luftishnefle, and courage chill Kindling afrefh, gan battell to renew, To prove if better foote then horsebacke would enfew. There then began a fearefull cruell fray Betwixt them two, for maiftery of might. For both were wondrous practicke in that play, And paffing well expert in fingle fight, And both inflamed with furious defpight, Which as it ftill increaft, so ftill increaft Their cruell ftrokes and terrible affright, Ne once for ruth their rigour they releaft, Ne once to breathe a while their angers tempeft ceaft. Thus long they tracked and traverft to and fro, And tryde all wayes, how each mote entrance make Into the life of his malignant foe. They hew their helmes, and plates asunder brake, As they had potchares been, for nought mote flake Their greedy vengeances, but gory blood, That at the laft like to a purple lake Of bloody gore congealed about them stood, Which from their riven fides forth gufhed like a flood. At length it chaunft, that both their hands on high At once did heave with all their powre and might, Thinking the utmoft of their force to try, And prove the finall fortune of the fight. But Calidore, that was more quicke of fight, And nimbler handed then his enemy, Prevented him before his ftroke could light, And on the helmet fmoke him formally, That made him stoupe to ground with meeke humility. And ere he could recover foote againe, He following that faire advantage faft, His ftroke redoubled with fuch might and maine, That him upon the ground he grovelling caft, And leaping to him light, would have unlaced his helme, To make unto his vengeance way. Who feeing in what danger he was placed, Cryde out, Ah mercy, Sir, do me not flay, But fave my life, which lot before your foote doth lay. With that his mortal hand a while he stayd, And having somewhat calmed his wrathfull heat, With goodly patience, thus he to him sayd: And is the boast of that proud Ladies threat, That menaced me from the field to beat, Now brought to this? By this now may ye learne, Strangers no more rudely to entreat, But put away proud looke, and usage fterne, The which fhall nought to you but foule difhonour yearne. For nothing is more blamefull to a knight, Then curt'fy doth as well as armes profefle, However ftrong and fortunate in flight, Then the reproch of pride and cruelnefle. In vaine he feeketh others to fupprefle, Who hath not learned himfelfe firft to subdew. All flefh is fraile, and full of ficklenefle, Subject to fortunes chaunce, still changing new. What haps to day to me, to morrow may to you. Who will not mercy unto others fhow, How can he mercy ever hope to have? To pay each with his owne his right and due. Yet fince ye mercy now doth need to crave, I will it graunt, your hopelefle life to fave, With thefe conditions, which I will propound. Firft, that ye better fhall yourfelfe behave Unto all errant knights, whereso on ground. Next, that ye Ladies ayd in every ftead and ftound. The wretched man, that all this while did well, In dread of death, his haefts did gladly heare, And promised to performe his precept well, And whatsoever else he would require. So suffring him to rife, he made him fweare, By his owne fword, and by the croffe thereon, To take Brianna for his loving faire, Withouten dowre or composition, But to releafe his former foule condition. All which accepting, and with faithfull oath Binding himfelfe moft firmely to obay, He up arofe, how ever liefe or loth, And fwore to him true fealty for aye. Then forth he called from sorrowfull difmay The sad Brianna, which all this beheld, Who comming forth yet full of late affray, Sir Calidore upcheard, and to her teld All this accord, to which he Crudor had compeld. Whereof fhe now more glad then sorry earft, All overcome with infinite affect, For his exceeding courtefie, That pierft her ftubborn hart with inward deep effect. Before his feet her felfe fhe did project, And him adoring as her lives deare Lord, With all due thanks, with dutifull refpect, Her felfe acknowledged bound for that accord, By which he had to her both life and love reftor'd. So all returning to the caftle glad, Moft joyfully fhe did them entertaine, Where goodly glee and feaft to them fhe made, To fhew her thankfull mind and meaning faine, By all the meanes fhe mote beft explaine. And after all, unto Sir Calidore She freely gave that caftle for his paine, And her felfe bound to him for evermore, So wondroufly now changed from that fhe was afore. But Calidore himfelfe would not retaine Nor land nor fee for hire of his good deed, But gave them ftreight unto that Squire againe, Whom from her Senefchal he lately freed, And to his damzell as their rightfull meed, For recompence of all their former wrong. There he remained with them right well agreed, Till of his wounds he wexed whole and ftrong, And then to his firft queft he paffed forth along. Canto VI. Book I. The Legend of Calidore.